Hey there, folks. So that was The Girl I Left Behind Me, and that's the tune we're going to learn today as part 2 of this melodic banjo series. So if you've checked out the first part of this series, where we talked about the G major scale and melodic style, then you should be all set. If you haven't checked that out or you want to know that scale, then there's a link in the description of this video down below where you can go learn that. And then once you learn that, you'll be ready for this lesson. But if you've already checked that out, or maybe you already know that scale position, or you just want to dive in here, that's totally fine. Here's how we're going to learn this tune. Basically, I'm just going to show you each part of the tune, each section, and then the phrases within each section at a couple different speeds. A speed where you can really clearly hear the melody, and then really slow so you can pick out everything that you're hearing and looking at, and it's going to be close-up views of both my left and right hand. So you're going to learn all of this just by watching and listening. And along the way, I'm going to give some tips for where to start with this or how to think about each section, but the bulk of the learning is going to be done by you. That said, if you are interested in getting the tablature for this arrangement, if you want to check your answers, so to speak, or maybe that's just what you want to check out to learn this tune, you can get that at patreon.com/EliGilbertBanjo. That's where I put the tablature and bonus content for all the stuff that you see here on YouTube. And it's also just a really great way to support these videos and make sure that I make more of them. So if you check that out, I really appreciate it. But if you're interested in learning in this style, then let's jump into it. And here's the first part that we're going to dig into. This is like the first phrase of the A section. First, we're going to learn the first half of that phrase right there. And so I'll play it for you at a reasonable kind of slow speed, and then I'll play it a couple times really slow. And your job is going to be to just listen to that over and over again, and then rewind and try to match up what it is that you're hearing with what you can actually play. And for a little hint, here's your little tip for what to get into in this next section. Start by just walking down that G major scale from the top. So starting from the 5th string. So you're going to start on the 5th string, walking down the scale, and then you'll notice that things change up a little bit from there. So here's that first half of that phrase. Okay, so assuming you've learned that first idea, we can move on. If not, go ahead and rewind over and over and over again, however long it takes you. But otherwise, we're going to move on to that second idea in this phrase. So this one is going to start here on the 7th fret of the 4th string, and you'll find that it does go down to the 2nd fret on the 4th string as well, but otherwise it stays mostly within that scale pattern as well. So here's the second half of that phrase. Okay, so hopefully you're able to figure out that section of the phrase as well. Let's put that back together again. So here is that first phrase of the A section all together, and you can listen to this and then check what you have against that. All right, so now we're going to move on to the second half of that phrase, and it starts with an open G string followed by a pinch, and then we're going to move up that melodic scale pattern. All right, so what we've learned up until this point is basically the first half of the A section. So let's put together everything we've learned so far. All right, so now we're going to move to the second half of the A section, which starts the exact same way that the first half does. You'll find that a lot of these tunes are kind of call and response within the sections. So the first half you heard here, that's kind of the call section, followed by the response. It's the same thing when we get to the second half of the A section. It starts with the call. Then we follow it up with a response. That's something new. But you've actually already learned 3/4 of the A section already. So here is the section you've already learned, but this is the beginning of the second half of the A section. Now we can move on to the last part of the A section, which is something new that you haven't seen yet. And we're actually starting down here in this kind of D position. So we're starting the 4th fret of the 4th string, and then we're just making our way back to G. So you don't have to think about the melodic shape in this particular instance. You can think about it more as playing down where this kind of D shape is that you might have seen. If not, then you'll be able to pick it up just by watching where my hands are at. And so with that, we have one time through the A section. So here's everything we've learned so far. And so it might be a good idea to just loop that A section over and over again. See if you can play all the way through it, but also loop back to the top of the A section, because that's part of playing this tune, is repeating those sections twice. Now, something to keep in mind is that there is a slight difference between the first time you go through the A section and the second time you go through the A section. The first time you go through, you're gonna play everything we just played, and then you're gonna loop back around with and go back to the top of the A section, right? But if you're going to the B section, you're not gonna play these pickup notes, because that's not leading into the B section. That's leading into the A section again. The B section sounds different. So the way you're gonna play the end of the A section is gonna differ whether it's the first time or the second time. First time, you're gonna play what we've already learned, right? If you're going to the B section, instead of having these notes at the end, you're just gonna finish out that pinch pattern towards the end, right? So it's gonna sound like this instead. You're just gonna add another pinch at the end. And so that's the whole A section, and that sets us up to move to the B section. So just to jog your memory, here's what the B section sounds like. Okay, so you're gonna find this whole section a lot easier than the A section, partially because of what the material looks like, and then also just because of the material that's repeated from the A section. So here's the first half of the B section. It's all quarter notes, and you'll find that there's kind of one short phrase, and then it kind of almost repeats the same short phrase. So you'll notice some material repeating even within just this half of the B section. Now, assuming you were able to get that, we're moving on to the second half of the B section, which is going to be the easiest part of this tune for you yet, because the second half of the B section is the same as the second half of the A section. And that's how a lot of these tunes work, right? Is that there's a statement of an idea and then kind of a response. And then when you get to the B section, there's something completely new. But then the end of the B section, we come back to the material we're already familiar with. So it's kind of like a story structure all in one tune. So I'll reiterate that the second half of the B section is the same as the second half of the A section. So here is the second half of the B section. And if you were able to learn that as the second half of the A section, then you probably picked that up pretty quickly. So here is the entire B section. Okay, and remember how in the A section we played the first time through differently than the second time through. The first time through we were looping back to the A section again. So we went back with, and then the second time we were going to the B section, so we couldn't end with that, right? We had to just do our full pinch pattern. Then we were ready to move to the B section. Well, when it comes to playing the B section, we're actually going to do that in reverse. The first time we play the B section, we end with the pinch pattern. Then the second time we play the B section, assuming we're going back to the A section, like we're going back up to the top again, then we can end like this. Right, so it depends what section you're going to. So I would think of this more in terms of your understanding of like what section is coming up next and less memorizing an exact arrangement. All you need to know is that if the A section is coming up, then you can come in with, and if the B section is coming up, then you don't play that. And so assuming you made it this far, then hopefully that means you've learned the tune, or at least you're still working on it. But here is once more the entire tune. All right, so I hope that worked out well for you. And if you still got questions, then you're always welcome to rewind this video and check it out again and again and again. That's what I do when I want to revisit something that I've already learned or think I could have learned a little better as I just go back and listen again and again and again. But otherwise, feel free to leave any questions you have in the comments of this video, and I'll try to get to those if I can. Otherwise, feel free to check out Patreon for the tablature for this arrangement and all kinds of other stuff as well. But otherwise, that's going to do it for this lesson. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.